This single-dad cleaner was ignored until he stopped a reactor explosion in seconds. Mark had always been underestimated, not just by his coworkers, but by everyone on the massive Orbitus 9 space station. A single dad, working as a cleaner, he moved quietly through corridors, pushing his small cleaning cart. Unnoticed by engineers, officers, and even security, everyone thought he was just a simple man, nothing special. A background presence that did not matter, but Mark had a sharp eye, years of hidden knowledge, and instincts that made him see what others missed. The station hummed with energy. Pipes hissed, vents released small bursts of steam, and machinery vibrated underfoot. Yet no one noticed the subtle anomalies in the readings that Mark carefully observed as he went about his work. Small cracks in metal panels, slightly higher pressure readings in minor valves, tiny fluctuations in coolant levels, all invisible to those too busy to care. "Hey, cleaner," one of the junior engineers sneered as Mark passed. "Why don't you just mop the floors instead of staring at gauges?" Mark smiled faintly, not replying, pushing his cart down a narrow corridor, his eyes flicking to a nearby panel, noticing a small but unusual spike in the reactor's secondary coolant system. It was minor, almost negligible, but Mark's experience told him it was the first whisper of trouble. Meanwhile, Lila, his 7-year-old daughter, followed closely behind, carrying her small backpack, skipping occasionally, unaware of the danger that lurked unseen. "Daddy, do they really think you're just a cleaner?" she asked softly, voice full of curiosity. Mark crouched slightly, looking into her eyes. "They don't know everything, Lila, and sometimes being quiet lets you see things they can't," he said, calm but serious, his eyes scanning a nearby vent. The station was alive with activity. Engineers and technicians moving between consoles, discussing minor problems, none aware of the anomaly Mark had noticed. Their confidence was total. They believed the automated systems would catch any serious issue. Mark moved to the observation panel in a small maintenance corridor, scanning readings, comparing them to past trends. The spike was subtle, but real. A warning signal that could become dangerous if ignored. He tapped a few buttons on a portable device, tracking coolant pressure fluctuations. "Cross-checking with temperature readings. Looks like a small glitch," said a senior engineer nearby, glancing at a distant monitor. "Nothing to worry about." Mark nodded politely, though he knew better. Automated systems often missed small issues that could cascade into major disasters, especially when minor cracks went unnoticed. Small mistakes became dangerous when pressure and heat built up inside the reactor core. He continued down the corridor, wiping a railing, adjusting a loose panel, while his mind worked on calculations, predicting possible outcomes. Each step was deliberate, every glance thoughtful. He observed the station as though it were alive, every hum, every vibration telling him a story. In the control room, engineers joked, unaware of the quiet observation happening in their midst. "If anything ever goes wrong, it'll be someone else's problem," one said, laughing. Mark passed by, nodding slightly, unseen, unnoticed, yet fully aware. His eyes caught a tiny vibration in a nearby vent pipe, the metal bending slightly under pressure, a small hiss escaping from a minor leak, a precursor, if ignored, to something far more serious. Lila tugged at his sleeve, sensing his concentration. "Daddy, is everything okay?" Mark crouched, brushing her hair back gently. "Everything's okay for now, Lila, but we have to pay attention, always," he said calmly, the tension in his voice subtle but real. He approached a section of the reactor control panels, the small spikes now forming a pattern, minor at first, then slightly increasing in intensity. The station's automated systems hadn't caught it yet, but Mark had, and he knew that by the time others noticed, it might already be too late. Suddenly, a small alarm beeped softly, a minor warning from a pressure sensor. Most engineers ignored it, assuming a system fault. But Mark paused, analyzing the data, cross-checking temperature readings and flow levels. His fingers flew over the portable console, noting the exact time, pressure, and temperature. "This isn't just a glitch," he muttered quietly, almost to himself. "This could become serious." He straightened, adjusting his cleaning gloves, walking calmly toward the reactor's secondary monitoring area, Leela following, her small hand gripping his tightly. Trusting him completely, the camera pans over the busy station, engineers laughing, officers walking past, and yet Mark, quiet and underestimated, notices every small anomaly, every irregularity, every movement calculated, every glance intentional. This quiet cleaner was no ordinary man, and the stage was set for the events that would test his skill, courage, and ingenuity in ways no one could imagine. As the corridor lights flickered slightly, Mark's eyes caught a subtle glow from a coolant pipe, a temperature rising more than it should, his heartbeat steady, his mind focused, the calm before the storm. And in that quiet moment, the audience senses that something big, something dangerous is about to happen, something that only this quiet, underestimated single dad could prevent. The soft beep from the pressure sensor that Mark had noticed earlier now pulsed steadily, barely audible over the constant hum of Orbitus 9's machinery. He moved quickly, but calmly through the narrow corridors, Lila following closely, her small fingers gripping his hand, sensing the tension in the air. Engineers continued their work, oblivious to the subtle signs Mark had detected. Screens flashed with data streams. Technicians typed rapidly, their focus on routine maintenance, believing the reactor was stable. Meanwhile, Mark's eyes scanned every panel, every gauge, every vent, noticing tiny fluctuations invisible to others. A low hiss echoed from a coolant pipe nearby, metal vibrating. Ever so slightly, he crouched, examining it carefully, his gloved fingers tracing the small crack that had begun to form. "If this spreads, it could overheat the secondary reactor core in minutes," he whispered, almost to himself, nearby. An engineer glanced at the alarm briefly, then shrugged. "Minor glitch. Systems will reset automatically," he said, walking away, confidence evident. Mark shook his head silently, knowing that automated systems often missed the first warning signs. Minor anomalies, if ignored, could quickly cascade into catastrophic failure. The station's size, its countless interconnected systems, made it vulnerable to just a single overlooked error. He activated a small portable scanner, running diagnostics on secondary cooling lines, pressure valves, and energy conduits. The device beeped softly, indicating several minor anomalies. Readings slightly higher than normal, flow rates slightly off, temperatures just beyond safe limits. Nothing alarming to the casual observer, but dangerous in combination. "Daddy? Why is everyone ignoring it?" Lila asked quietly, her voice trembling with curiosity and concern. Mark crouched beside her, brushing her hair back. "They don't see what I see, Lila, and that's why I have to act now," he said, calm but firm, his eyes returning to the glowing monitors. He moved closer to the reactor chamber, careful to stay within safety protocols, observing the network of pipes and conduits that snaked through the station like metallic veins. The soft vibration under his feet told him more than any screen could, a subtle warning pulse that only someone paying close attention could notice. Suddenly, a louder alarm blared, red lights flashing along the hallways. Engineers glanced at their monitors, confusion spreading across their faces. "What's happening?" one asked, voice shaky. Mark didn't panic. He approached a secondary panel, fingers flying over buttons and switches, scanning readings faster than anyone else could comprehend. "The secondary core is destabilizing," he said quietly, almost under his breath. "If the pressure isn't relieved soon, the main reactor could follow." Technicians stared at him, unsure whether to take him seriously. After all, he was just a cleaner, A single dad, someone they had dismissed countless times, yet his calm, precise actions betrayed knowledge, skill, and understanding that no one expected. He tapped into maintenance drones stationed nearby, activating 2 at once, sending them to inspect minor leaks in the cooling lines, adjust pressure valves, and check energy conduits. The drones moved efficiently under his command. Yet Mark's eyes focused on the bigger picture. Anticipating issues the drones could not reach, a sharp hiss echoed from a vent. Metal groaning slightly, he examined it quickly, realizing a pressure valve had partially jammed, restricting coolant flow. If left unattended, the pressure spike could trigger a chain reaction, escalating rapidly toward disaster. Mark knelt beside the jammed valve, analyzing it, his mind racing through possibilities. Every second counted, and every delay increased the risk. Engineers rushed past, some glancing nervously at the alarms, still unsure how serious the situation was. "Mark, should we evacuate?" a junior engineer asked, uncertainty in his voice. Mark shook his head. "Not yet. We can fix this, but I need full focus. Everyone else, stay alert and ready to assist if needed," he said, calm but commanding, the kind of tone that made even seasoned engineers listen. He returned to the portable scanner, running a full diagnostic of connected systems, noting small anomalies that could affect the jammed valve. Flow pressure slightly low, temperature rising slowly, heat building in a way that could overwhelm the system within minutes. The station's hum grew louder, almost as if it sensed the tension. The red warning lights reflected off metallic walls. Engineers now moving frantically, realizing that the situation was serious, but none could act as quickly, as decisively. As Mark, the quiet cleaner, the underestimated single dad, he crouched again, adjusting the drones to release minor pressure from nearby vents, redirect coolant flow, and stabilize secondary conduits. The hiss of escaping air and the hum of energy flowing through conduits created a tense symphony of sound. The stakes clear to anyone listening closely. Lila watched silently, awe and fear in her eyes. "Daddy, are you really going to fix it?" Mark smiled faintly, crouching to her level. "We'll fix it together, Lila. Watch carefully. Learn and stay calm," he said, his calm demeanor hiding the adrenaline running through his veins. Above, engineers stared at the monitors, noting the drone's movements, adjustments being made, and slowly realizing that the quiet cleaner they had ignored was actively stabilizing a reactor no one else could manage. Their disbelief mixed with admiration. A silent acknowledgement that Mark was extraordinary. The jammed valve remained the final challenge, still restricting pressure, still threatening to escalate the situation. Every second mattered. Every minor adjustment had to be perfect, or the chain reaction would begin. Mark took a deep breath, examining the valve closely, calculating angles, pressure points, and timing. His mind worked faster than any computer, anticipating outcomes, predicting failures, preparing for the moment when human intervention alone would be the only solution. And as the alarms continued their urgent rhythm, the audience can feel the tension building. Every hissing vent, every vibrating pipe, every flashing light signaling the invisible danger lurking beneath the surface. The quiet cleaner, underestimated and mocked, was the only one who could prevent disaster. The stage was set for Mark's hidden skills to be revealed, for courage and intelligence to collide with imminent catastrophe, and for the first true test of his heroism to begin. Leaving the audience on the edge of their seats, the station's alarms had shifted from subtle beeps to urgent, piercing sirens, red warning lights flashing across every corridor, and engineers moving frantically. But Mark remained calm, his mind sharp, analyzing the situation with precise focus. Lila stayed close, her small hand gripping his, eyes wide, sensing the tension in every vibration of the massive Orbitus 9. Mark approached the reactor chamber, where the heart of the station pulsed with dangerous energy. Small hisses of steam escaping from minor cracks, coolant flow fluctuating, valves straining against pressure. Every second wasted could trigger a catastrophic explosion, and he knew it. Everyone stepped back. He commanded, his calm voice cutting through the chaos. Engineers paused, looking at him in disbelief. What? What can he do that we can't? One whispered, panic in his eyes. Mark ignored them, activating 2 maintenance drones, directing them with precision toward the secondary conduits, vents, and pressure valves, while his eyes scanned every monitor, comparing readings to past patterns, predicting potential failures before they could happen. The drones moved quickly, adjusting minor leaks, releasing pressure in critical areas. But Mark knew their reach was limited. They could stabilize small issues, but the jammed valve and main conduits required human intervention. He crouched, examining a cracked vent pipe, noticing the subtle heat distortion in the metal. If this expands, it will overload the secondary flow. He murmured, adjusting his toolkit, selecting a compact micro-welder and pressure calibrator. Devices simple in appearance, but capable of precise corrections in high-risk zones. Engineers watched from a distance, disbelief mixing with awe, as Mark moved through tight spaces, threading between pipes and conduits, positioning the drones while simultaneously making manual adjustments. Each movement calculated, each action deliberate, a dance of skill and courage unseen by most. A sudden tremor shook the station, loose panels rattling, small sparks flying from a nearby energy conduit. Mark reacted instantly, redirecting power, stabilizing a vent, guiding a drone to reinforce a pipe, all in the span of seconds, while maintaining full awareness of the jammed valve's critical state. "Daddy, be careful," Leila whispered, her voice trembling. Mark crouched beside her, brushing her hair back. "I will, Lila. Just stay close and watch." "This is how we prevent disaster," he said calmly, his eyes never leaving the readings. The jammed valve was still the main threat, restricting coolant flow, heat building dangerously, pressure readings climbing steadily. Yet Mark remained composed, analyzing the precise point of blockage, calculating angles and force required to free it without causing a rupture. He instructed the drones to hold pressure at nearby conduits, keeping coolant flowing while he approached the valve. Their mechanical arms reinforced pipes, prevented minor leaks from worsening, giving him the time and space to act. Mark crouched directly over the jammed valve, gloved hands moving with careful precision, adjusting small levers, guiding the micro-welder to release fused metal. Sparks flew dangerously, close to his suit, the heat radiating like a warning. But he continued, calculating every millimeter of movement. A sudden hiss of escaping steam erupted, nearly knocking him off balance. But Mark adapted instantly, pressing his body against the wall, stabilizing the tool and continuing his work. The engineers watched from behind the protective barrier, silence in the room, hearts pounding as they realized this cleaner, this single dad, was performing a feat none of them could attempt. Minutes felt like hours as Mark worked, every movement critical, every adjustment precise, the reactor's core temperature rising steadily, alarms blaring, the hum of machinery becoming almost deafening. Yet he remained calm, focused, steady, his mind a perfect balance of calculation and instinct. He paused briefly, adjusting his gloves, wiping sweat from his brow inside the helmet, then resumed, carefully rotating the valve, releasing fused pins, guiding coolant flow back to stable levels, all while instructing drones to monitor minor fluctuations, preventing secondary failures. Finally, the valve shifted completely, a hiss of escaping pressure signaling the success, coolant flow restored, alarms quieting slightly, engineers exchanging stunned glances, whispering, He actually did it." Mark didn't relax immediately, checking surrounding pipes, conduits, and vents for hidden issues, ensuring no further risk. He tapped a few commands into the drones, reinforcing weak points, minor cracks, and temperature hotspots, leaving nothing to chance. "Daddy?" "You did it," Lila exclaimed, running to hug him, eyes wide with amazement. Mark crouched, hugging her back. "We did it together, Lila. Not just fixing what we see, but noticing what others miss," he said, a small smile breaking his calm. Exterior, the engineers approached cautiously, admiration evident in their expressions. "Mark, we didn't think anyone could manage that, let alone a cleaner," one said, voice trembling. Mark shook his head, humility clear. "It's not about who you are. It's about noticing, thinking, and acting before it's too late," he said simply. Yet every word carried weight, a lesson in courage and skill. As the station began to stabilize, a soft vibration ran through the corridors, a subtle reminder that this was only the beginning, that more dangers could appear. Hidden faults, unseen cracks, yet Mark remained alert. Prepared for the next challenge, the crew began whispering among themselves, finally recognizing what they had overlooked, that heroism could come from the most unexpected places. That quiet, underestimated cleaner had just prevented a disaster that could have destroyed the station, saved countless lives, and proved the extraordinary potential of ordinary humans. And as Mark adjusted his gloves, scanning the reactor panel one more time, the audience feels the rising tension, knowing that the calm and collected single dad had only revealed the first of his hidden skills, the first act of courage that would define him as a hero. The stage was set for even greater challenges ahead, more tests of skill, bravery, and intelligence. And the audience is left on the edge of their seats, wondering what impossible feat Mark would tackle next, ready to witness the full scope of his hidden capabilities. Even after stabilizing the jammed valve, Mark knew the danger was far from over. The secondary core was still under stress, minor cracks threatening to grow, pressure levels fluctuating, the station humming with tense energy. Every second counted, and the slightest miscalculation could trigger a chain reaction. The station's alarms blared incessantly, red lights flashing through long metallic corridors, engineers scrambling, their confidence shaken. "We can't keep up with these readings," one shouted, fear evident in his voice. Mark moved quickly but calmly, scanning monitors and panels, calculating the next steps, guiding drones to reinforce weak spots while manually adjusting conduits, vents, and pressure valves. Lila stayed close, her small hand in his, eyes wide with a mixture of fear and pride. "Daddy, what if it explodes?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Mark crouched beside her, brushing her hair back. "We won't let it, Lila. Just stay calm and trust me," he said, voice steady, even as his heart raced, knowing the stakes were higher than ever. A sudden tremor ran through the station, metal panels rattling, sparks flying from an energy conduit. The reactor's pulse had intensified, the automated systems struggling to compensate. Mark quickly analyzed the readings, noticing that the pressure in the primary coolant loop had spiked dangerously. He shouted to nearby engineers, "Divert power to the main stabilizers. Engage emergency venting. Follow my instructions exactly." Some hesitated, unsure if they should trust the cleaner, but Mark's calm confidence overrode doubt, and they obeyed. Mark crawled into a tight maintenance shaft, navigating narrow passages lined with pipes, conduits, and flashing warning lights. The heat radiating from nearby panels was intense, sparks threatening to ignite small fires. Every movement had to be precise, every action deliberate. "Daddy?" "It's too hot," Lila whispered, holding his sleeve. Mark smiled faintly. "I know, Lila. That's why we move carefully. One wrong move and the station could be destroyed, but we'll make it," he said, eyes scanning the panels, fingers adjusting pressure calibrators, valves, and coolant flow regulators. In the control room, engineers watched in disbelief. the screens showing pressure spikes and vent readings. But none could match Mark's precision. None could navigate the maintenance shafts while simultaneously controlling drones, adjusting flow, and anticipating the next threat. Suddenly, a loud hiss erupted from a conduit near the primary reactor, a section of piping groaning under pressure. Mark reacted instantly, redirecting the coolant flow, guiding a drone to reinforce the weakened section, while simultaneously crawling closer to the unstable vent. "Daddy, be careful," Lila shouted, voice trembling. Mark crouched, wiping sweat from his brow inside the helmet. "I have to fix this now." "There's no time to wait," he said, calm but resolute, adjusting his toolkit, selecting a compact plasma calibrator to realign the vent, a risky procedure that required steady hands and perfect timing. The vent hissed violently, sparks flying, dangerously close to his suit, yet Mark continued, pressing against the wall for stability, fingers moving with precise timing, releasing pressure gradually, redirecting coolant, stabilizing energy flow. Every second mattered, every minor adjustment could prevent disaster. Engineers whispered among themselves, awe in their voices. He's actually doing it. No one else could. Some cautiously moved closer, taking notes, learning from his movements. Realizing that heroism could come from the most unexpected place, Mark's focus never wavered, scanning the reactor panels, monitoring every pressure spike, every temperature fluctuation, adjusting the vent, reinforcing secondary conduits, and guiding drones to patch minor leaks. The station's hum felt louder, more urgent, as if it knew the crisis had reached its peak. A sharp vibration ran through the floor, metal panels rattling, sparks flying, and a loud alarm indicating rising core temperature blared. Mark's eyes narrowed, calculating angles and timing, moving faster yet precisely. Just a little more. "Almost there," he muttered, focusing entirely on the jammed vent and unstable pipes. Layla clutched his sleeve tightly, her small body trembling, yet she trusted him completely, watching him thread between pipes, adjust valves, and stabilize flow. She realized that her father, quiet and underestimated, had become the station's only hope. The vent hissed one final time. Coolant flow restored, minor leaks sealed, drones holding pressure on weak conduits. Mark double-checked readings, ensuring no further fluctuations threatened the reactor. The alarms quieted slightly, the temperature stabilizing, the worst of the crisis averted for now. Engineers and officers exchanged stunned glances, finally acknowledging the reality they had ignored, that a simple cleaner had just prevented a disaster that could have destroyed the station, saved countless lives, and stabilized the reactor with unmatched skill and calm precision. Mark stood slowly, brushing off dust from his suit, scanning the room one last time, every panel, every vent, every minor crack accounted for. Lila running to hug him, eyes wide with admiration and relief. "Daddy, you saved everyone," she exclaimed, voice trembling. Mark crouched, holding her close. "We did it together. Lila, always notice, always act, and never underestimate what humans can do," he said quietly, calm but filled with quiet pride. The crew began whispering, awe turning into respect, admiration, and even fear as they realized the truth, that heroism was not always in rank, title, or position, but in courage, skill, and the ability to act when everyone else froze. And even as the station stabilized, a subtle vibration in the distance hinted at the next challenge, a reminder that this victory was only temporary, that more danger could arise, more crises awaited, testing the skills, courage, and ingenuity of the quiet, underestimated single dad who had proven himself extraordinary. The stage was set for the next phase, where Mark's hidden skills and courage would face even greater threats, and the audience is left on edge, knowing that time is running out, and the next seconds could be the most dangerous yet. The heat from the reactor chamber pressed against Mark's suit like a living force, hissing steam escaping from minor cracks, sparks flickering dangerously close. Every movement was precise, calculated, and critical. One wrong step, one mistimed adjustment, could trigger a catastrophic chain reaction that no one could survive. "Daddy." "I'm scared," Lila whispered, clutching his sleeve, her eyes wide and trembling. Mark crouched beside her for a brief moment, brushing her hair back. "Stay close, Lila. Watch carefully." Courage is noticing danger, understanding it, and acting. "Even when everyone else freezes," he said calmly. Though adrenaline raced through his veins, he turned his focus back to the jammed valve and the unstable primary conduits. The epicenter of the potential disaster. Every gauge screamed warning. Every panel blinked red, and the hissing of overheated pipes filled the chamber like a chorus of tension. Mark knew he had seconds, maybe less, to act. The drones were stabilizing secondary conduits, minor leaks patched, but the main valve required human precision, timing, and courage. A simple tool or automated system could not handle the delicate alignment needed under this pressure. He adjusted his gloves, gripping the micro-welder and the plasma calibrator tightly, crawling closer to the valve, sliding carefully over slick metal, dodging sparks, and avoiding pipes hot enough to burn through his suit. The station vibrated. Under him, alarms blaring louder, reflecting the critical state of the core. Everyone back. He shouted to nearby engineers and technicians, though most had already stepped back, watching in awe, realizing the moment required the impossible. Only one person could act with this combination of skill, courage, and calm. Mark crouched directly above the valve, analyzing the fused metal and pressure alignment, calculating angles and forces as his fingers moved with perfect timing. Every millimeter counted. Every adjustment could prevent or trigger disaster. He paused for a brief second, breathing deeply, the hum of the reactor like a heartbeat in his ears. Then he began, slowly releasing the fused pins, using the micro-welder to soften the jammed metal, guiding coolant flow back into balance, all while keeping pressure from rising too quickly. A sudden hiss of steam erupted from a nearby conduit, knocking a spark dangerously close, but Mark adapted instantly, pressing against the wall for stability, guiding the plasma calibrator to adjust. The valve's angle, gradually opening it, easing pressure, letting coolant flow. "Daddy?" "It's too close," Lila shouted, voice trembling, but she didn't move, trusting him completely. Mark's eyes narrowed, every nerve focused, sweat running inside his helmet. Yet his movements remained calm, precise, deliberate, every action synchronized with the station's fluctuating readings. The primary conduit's temperature slowly dropped as coolant flow stabilized. But he wasn't done, not yet. The valve resisted the final adjustment, fused metal threatening to snap. Pressure rising dangerously. Alarms blared as the station trembled under the stress. Engineers watching silently, hearts pounding, knowing the station's fate rested on this single man. Mark's hands moved faster, yet carefully, fingers steady, adjusting the valve incrementally, guiding coolant flow, activating emergency venting for microseconds to relieve pressure spikes. A combination of manual skill, intuition, and quick thinking that no system could replicate. Minutes felt like hours as he worked. Attention palpable, sparks flying, heat radiating, steam hissing violently. Every second was a gamble. But Mark remained calm, focused, unshakable, the embodiment of human ingenuity and courage. Finally, with one precise adjustment, the valve shifted fully, a hiss of released pressure echoing through the chamber. Coolant flow fully restored, temperature stabilizing, alarms quieting slightly. Engineers exchanged stunned glances, whispers of awe and disbelief spreading like wildfire. He actually did it. Mark didn't relax immediately, checking surrounding pipes, conduits, and vents for hidden threats, ensuring no further anomalies could escalate into disaster. The drones reinforced minor weak points, energy flow stabilized, and secondary conduits remained steady, the station system slowly returning to normal. Lila ran to him, hugging his arm tightly, eyes wide with amazement. "Daddy, you saved everyone." Mark crouched beside her, brushing her hair back. "We did it together, Lila. Notice what others miss, act when it matters, and stay calm. That's what makes humans capable of amazing things," he said, his voice steady but filled with quiet. Pride. The crew began whispering, awe turning into respect, admiration, and even disbelief, realizing that the quiet, underestimated cleaner, the single dad everyone had mocked, had just performed a feat no engineer or automated system could achieve. Commander Harlan approached, eyes serious but respectful. "Mark, you've saved this station from complete disaster." "I don't know what to say." "You've done the impossible." Mark shook his head, humility in every gesture. "It's not about heroism, sir. It's about noticing, understanding, and acting before it's too late. Anyone can do it if they pay attention," he said simply, yet the weight of his words resonated deeply with everyone present. Outside the reactor chamber, the station's hum began to normalize, screens slowly returning to green, minor leaks fully stabilized, vents steady, power flow balanced. The engineers slowly realized that they had just witnessed the extraordinary capability of one human being against impossible odds. Even as relief spread, a subtle vibration in the distance reminded everyone that danger could return. More hidden faults, more unforeseen crises awaited. But Mark had proven something profound, that humanity, even underestimated and mocked, could act with courage, intelligence, and precision beyond imagination. He stood slowly, brushing off dust, scanning every panel one last time, ensuring stability, Lila running to hug him again, the bond between father and daughter strengthened by shared courage. "Daddy, everyone's talking about you now," she whispered, eyes shining. Mark smiled faintly. "It doesn't matter what they say. What matters is doing the right thing when it counts," he said, turning to look at the stabilized reactor, a quiet hero among stunned witnesses. And as the crew slowly recovered from the shock, the audience feels the suspense and awe, realizing that what they just witnessed was a defining HFY moment, the power of ordinary humans achieving the extraordinary. The quiet, underestimated single dad had performed the impossible, and the story of his courage would echo throughout Orbitus 9, inspiring everyone who witnessed it. The immediate danger had passed, but the station still thrummed with tension. A subtle vibration ran through the metal floors, a reminder that Orbitus 9 was still a fragile ecosystem. Every pipe, vent, and conduit under stress. Engineers walked cautiously through the corridors, their earlier arrogance replaced by quiet awe and whispered conversations. Mark, the quiet cleaner, had stabilized the reactor, preventing a catastrophe no one else could have handled. Yet he didn't celebrate, scanning every panel, checking every reading, ensuring no hidden threat remained, calm, precise, and fully aware that the station's survival depended on continued vigilance. "Mark, that was incredible," Commander Harlan said, voice still filled with awe, approaching carefully. "I don't think anyone has ever done what you just did." Mark shook his head humbly. "I just did what needed to be done. We all have a role, sir. It's about noticing, acting, and staying calm when everyone else panics," he said, eyes scanning the reactor's stabilized readings. The engineers slowly began to gather around, whispering, admiring the man they had dismissed as a simple cleaner. They asked questions, eager to understand his actions, his decisions, and his calm approach, realizing that courage and intelligence could come from the most unexpected places. Even the station security officers, who had once mocked Mark for his quiet nature, now nodded with respect, watching as he explained each step he had taken, every micro-adjustment, every drone command. Every valve alignment. They realized the heroism wasn't in brute strength or rank, but in skill, precision, and calm judgment under pressure. Meanwhile, Layla ran between engineers and her father, proud and wide-eyed. "Daddy, everyone's talking about you. They can't believe you saved the station." Mark crouched beside her, smiling faintly. "It doesn't matter what they say, Layla. What matters is being ready when danger comes and doing what's right," he said quietly, brushing her hair back. But even as relief spread, a new problem emerged, subtle yet dangerous. Outside the station, sensors detected a cluster of small asteroids with unpredictable energy readings, orbiting dangerously close to the station, their electromagnetic pulses threatening to interfere with critical systems, and if uncontrolled, could cause minor energy surges in the reactor, destabilizing it once again. Mark's eyes narrowed, scanning the readings, anticipating the threat. "This isn't over yet," he murmured, tapping his portable device to track asteroid positions, their electromagnetic influence, and potential impact points. The engineers gathered around, anxious, but now willing to listen. "Mark, what do we do?" one asked, voice shaking slightly. He took a deep breath, analyzing patterns. "We need to reinforce the energy shields in critical sections, recalibrate reactor dampeners, and redirect auxiliary power to compensate for any surges," he said. Issuing precise instructions, calm and confident, the crew quickly obeyed, following his commands, realizing that this quiet, underestimated cleaner was now the station's central strategist, guiding them through danger no one else could predict. The drones he had deployed earlier now moved autonomously, stabilizing secondary conduits, monitoring energy flows, and detecting anomalies in real time, all coordinated by Mark's calculations. A sudden alert flashed on the main screen. One asteroid emitted a stronger pulse than expected, a potential overload incoming in less than 2 minutes. Engineers panicked slightly, but Mark remained calm, analyzing the timing and trajectory, guiding drones to reroute energy, opening auxiliary vents to absorb surges, and recalibrating dampeners to stabilize the reactor core. "Everyone, stay focused. Follow my instructions exactly," he shouted, voice steady, commanding attention. Every engineer, technician, and officer followed, the tension palpable. But the team now unified under Mark's leadership. The asteroid's pulse struck, sending a ripple through the station's energy conduits, but the adjustments held, coolant flow stable, primary and secondary cores unaffected. The drones reacted instantly, reinforcing weak points, redistributing energy, and preventing surges from escalating. Mark breathed a small sigh of relief, checking each monitor carefully, but his mind raced ahead, anticipating further pulses and ensuring that all possible threats were accounted for. He glanced at Layla, who watched with admiration, her eyes shining with pride, realizing that her father had become more than a hero. He was the station's guardian, strategist, and protector. The crew now fully recognized his capabilities, asking questions, taking notes, and learning from his actions. Even Commander Harlan nodded with approval. "Mark, your actions saved not just the station, but potentially hundreds of lives. You've changed how we view heroism," he said, voice filled with respect. Mark smiled faintly. "It's not about heroism, sir. It's about paying attention, thinking, and acting when it matters most. That's what anyone can do if they focus," he said, humility evident. But even as the station stabilized, subtle vibrations from the approaching asteroid cluster reminded everyone that danger could strike again. New challenges awaited, hidden faults, unforeseen energy surges, and unpredictable threats. Yet Mark remained alert, ready for the next crisis, calm, focused, and prepared. The audience senses the rising tension, knowing that, while the immediate danger was managed, the station was far from safe. And Mark, the quiet, underestimated single dad cleaner, had not only saved the station, but earned the trust, admiration, and respect of everyone around him, reinforcing the HFY theme. Human courage, intelligence, and ingenuity can overcome the impossible. As the engineers and crew continued to stabilize systems, Mark scanned the asteroid cluster again, calculating potential threats, adjusting auxiliary power flows, and preparing for any surprise, Lila standing beside him, witnessing firsthand the quiet strength, courage, and brilliance of her father. The stage was now set for the final act, where Mark would face new challenges that would test not just his skill, but his courage, intelligence, and determination, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats, eager to see how the underestimated cleaner would continue to save the station and prove humanity's potential once again. Orbitus 9's corridors vibrated with tension, alarms echoing like a heartbeat across the massive station. The asteroid cluster outside drew closer, each small pulse of electromagnetic energy threatening to destabilize the reactor once again. The crew moved frantically, but their panic had a new layer now. They trusted Mark, yet even he could only do so much. Mark stood in the reactor chamber, Lila close by, clutching his hand tightly, her eyes wide, scanning the blinking panels. Sparks flickered dangerously around damaged conduits, the hum of machinery growing louder, almost as if the station itself sensed the approaching threat. "Daddy, will it be okay?" Leela whispered, voice trembling. Mark crouched beside her, brushing her hair back. "We'll do everything we can, Lila. But sometimes, doing the right thing means taking risks no one else will," he said quietly, eyes scanning. Every gauge, every panel, every vibration of the station, the asteroid pulses intensified, sending sharp electromagnetic surges through the station systems. Small sparks flying from energy conduits, pressure spikes in the reactor core, and minor leaks opening in previously stabilized pipes. The crew froze, unsure how to respond. Mark's eyes narrowed, analyzing the trajectory of the asteroids, their energy output, and the vulnerabilities in the station systems. "This time, it's not just valves or conduits. We need precise timing and total control," he muttered, activating drones, recalibrating auxiliary reactors, and rerouting energy flow. Engineers watched in stunned silence, realizing that the quiet cleaner, the single dad they had mocked, was orchestrating a symphony of life and death, balancing energy, pressure, and coolant flow with unmatched precision. Yet this threat required more than skill. It demanded risk, courage, and a willingness to put oneself in harm's way. A particularly strong pulse from a large asteroid struck the station, sending a surge through the main conduits, causing sparks to flare dangerously, heat rising in the eye, reactor core and alarms blaring louder than ever. Mark reacted instantly, redirecting power, manually stabilizing the conduit, and guiding the drones to reinforce vulnerable sections. Every movement precise, every action critical, but one conduit, directly above the reactor core, began to buckle, threatening to rupture under pressure. A rupture here would trigger a catastrophic chain reaction that no automated system could stop, and no engineer could approach safely. Mark's eyes widened, slightly, calculating the risk, then crouched, his gloved hands gripping the conduit supports. "Lila, stay back," he shouted, his voice firm, protective. Lila clutched his arm, fear and pride mixing in her gaze. "Daddy, don't." Mark gave her a small, reassuring smile. "I have to." "Trust me, Lila," he said, before climbing carefully toward the weakened conduit, his suit shielding him from heat and sparks. But the risk was immense. Every second mattered. Every misstep could be fatal. He positioned himself directly under the buckling pipe, using a combination of tools, drones, and raw skill to stabilize it manually, holding it in place while redirecting energy flow, releasing pressure in microseconds to prevent rupture. His body straining, sweat pouring inside his helmet, every nerve alert. The station shuddered violently as another asteroid pulse hit, sending sparks flying dangerously close. But Mark adjusted instantly, his hands moving faster than anyone could. Comprehend, balancing heat, energy, and pressure, keeping the reactor stable. Engineers and officers watched in awe and terror, realizing the impossible task Mark was performing. A single human, using skill, courage, and intelligence, holding back disaster that could destroy the entire station. Minutes felt like eternity. The heat rising, sparks threatening to ignite, and pressure fluctuating dangerously. Yet Mark remained focused, every micro-movement precise, every adjustment calculated. The drones assisted where possible, but the final stabilization required him alone. Finally, with one precise shift of his hands and a calculated energy reroute, the conduit stabilized fully, the reactor's core temperature balanced, alarms quieting gradually, energy flow steady, and sparks no longer flaring. The immediate threat passed. Mark slumped slightly, exhaustion evident, but relief visible in his eyes. Lila ran to hug him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, you did it. You saved everyone." He crouched, holding her close, smiling faintly. "We did it together, Lila. Courage is about acting when no one else can. That's what humans do," he said quietly, the weight of his actions settling around him. The crew approached cautiously, awe and respect in every step. Commander Harlan's eyes were filled with admiration. "Mark, I don't think we'll ever forget this. You've saved not just the station, but everyone aboard. You've shown what humans are capable of." Mark shook his head humbly. "It's not about me, sir. It's about paying attention, thinking, and acting when it counts. That's the true power we all have," he said simply, voice calm yet filled with quiet authority. As the station hummed back to normal, drones reinforcing minor weak points and energy flows stabilized. The crew finally began to breathe, realizing that the quiet, underestimated cleaner, the single dad they had mocked and ignored, was the true hero of Orbitus 9. Layla held his hand, looking up with pride. "Daddy, everyone believes in you now," she whispered, eyes shining. Mark smiled, crouching to her level. "It's not about being believed, Lila. It's about knowing what to do, staying calm, and acting when it matters most," he said, glancing one. Last time at the stabilized reactor. Now quiet, humming steadily. The audience feels the tension resolve, the suspense giving way to awe, realizing that the single dad cleaner had performed impossible feats, displayed unmatched courage, intelligence, and precision, and proved the HFY principle. Human ingenuity and heroism can overcome even the most impossible odds. The stage was now complete, the reactor stabilized, the asteroid threat neutralized, and Orbitus 9 safe, thanks to the quiet, underestimated hero. Mark, the audience, is left inspired, knowing that extraordinary human courage can appear in the most unexpected forms, and that sometimes the greatest heroes are those we least expect. And as Mark and Lila walked hand in hand through the now stable corridors, engineers and crew quietly nodding in respect, the story concluded, leaving a lasting impression of human potential, courage, and intelligence. The single dad cleaner had proven that heroism comes not from rank or recognition, but from focus, bravery, and the willingness to act when it matters most.